Today will not have the big picture implications that you think today will have on the future of this country, because the NFL trade deadline never truly, affects the future like we think it will. See, I tried to throw a little jab right off the bat, guys. We got lots to talk about. Sixers, Eagles, NFL trade deadline. Dylan Davis, for the first time in ages, is joining me today. Guys, Trending the AM, we're live in 30 seconds.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 woo!
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM, right here on the STT Sports Network. We are live, YouTube and Twitter, so make sure you guys do me that favor, as always, and hit that like button and that subscribe button. It is free to do it. It is free to support a small content creator. It's free to support a YouTube channel, and so I'd greatly appreciate that. And if you've already done those things, please hit the share button. Tell one, tell a friend, tell somebody to make sure they get in here on the morning show here, where your opinions actually matter. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel. A little tired, a little exhausted. I tried to give the Sixers as much of my attention as I could last night. I know my co-host today, my guest today, gave him all his attention till late into the morning. The great Dylan Davis from DSM Media is here, guys. Dylan, good morning. How are you?
What's going on, Scruff? How's a long time no see?
Well, I haven't cut my hair since the last time we did a show together.
Yeah, we got to get Phil cleaned up over there. And I respect the intro. The NFL trade deadline is obviously the biggest thing going on in the United States of America today.
Absolutely. But it never actually has the effect that you think it will.
No, it's of all the major sports deadlines, I guess I'll throw it above the NHL, obviously. But with the NBA and MLB included, it's probably the least impactful. Not to say that things don't happen, but I think the wide receiver moves and some of the other moves you saw like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago will probably have more of an impact than anything you're going to see by 4 or 5 p.m. tonight.
Absolutely agree with you on that. I mean, it kind of felt like you hit on some of those wide receiver trades. There were some big trades, not just wide receiver period, weeks ago. And I thought maybe I saw some people talking about how maybe the NFL trade deadline was going to be starting to shift a little bit. Maybe it would become more important and more effective. Yeah. But, I listened to every single press conference, whether it's, Nick Sirianni, Vic Fangio, Michael Clay. I make sure I listen to every single coach talk. And Vic Fangio spoke pretty openly last week about the trade deadline, saying, look, I hope we don't make a trade because it takes a long time. Do you really think it is compared to basketball? You think basketball trying to integrate with 4 other guys on the court would take some time, but it happens all the time in basketball. In football, it takes a long time to kind of figure out a new system, a new scheme, a new way of doing business.
It's got to be the biggest difference, right? Like learning a new playbook, learning a new system, because you mentioned basketball. Go to the MLB, dude. Like, obviously, that's the biggest individual sport, but, like, you don't have stars traded, right? Like, if Max Crosby or Myles Garrett got moved today, that would be huge, right? If Max Crosby went to Detroit, that would be a game changer that we're talking about. But you go back 2, 3, 4 years ago, I mean, on a trade deadline day, Trey Turner and Max Scherzer got packaged to the LA Dodgers. Juan Soto goes to the San Diego Padres a few years ago and meets us in the end. Like, those are season altering, championship altering type of moves that you just don't get in the NFL. Like, if Darius Smith gets moved today, like, that's a very nice pickup for whoever goes out and gets him and needs him.
Yeah. I think it also depends on the position. Like, a defensive end edge rusher that's just going after the quarterback is one thing. Yeah. Wide receivers take a little bit of time to gel. Cornerbacks, if you're trading for a cornerback that's a press corner, but you run a zone defense, like, it's just not going to be as seamless a transition as people think. And I think that's why it's not, the big deal that it has been in other sports.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you're not getting any star running backs for the most part traded at the deadline. You're not no quarterbacks are getting moved to a contender, right? So you just don't have the firepower that you do in the other sports. And the time it takes to get implemented, unless, like you said, your job is to do one thing, and that is rush the passer. And even then, teams don't want to move on because those positions are kind of cornerstones for them, right? Like, even if you're
that's
the
that's
Las
why the
Vegas
Raiders don't want to trade Max Crosby,
right?
Because they got him locked up for so long, and edge rush is such an elite position. Why would, unless you blew the Raiders away with multiple first-round picks, they're not going to move off of Max Crosby, and the Browns have already said they're not moving off of Myles Garrett at this point.
Correct. And if you're the team trying to acquire one of those guys, you moving 4 or 5 first rounders today, Phil? I don't know that that's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to start with Sixers, but we jumped right into the trade deadline Eagles. So we'll start there. Then we'll go to Sixers in a little bit because I know Trinidad, I'm sure Trinidad.
There he is. Oh, I couldn't find him. I couldn't find him last night.
Yeah, he was dead silent since the Yankees lost the World Series.
Yeah.
But he's here. We'll get to the Sixers losing. The Eagles are not really rumored in any, 2 weeks ago, there were rumors about this or that they might do. The Eagles aren't rumored in anything. The only rumor was Tom Pelissero. I'm not sure if you caught his clip yesterday talking about Bryce Huff's name in trade things. Do you expect the Eagles to make any move at all today? Because to me, I'm okay just sticking with what we've got because it's taken us 8-9 weeks to finally get into a groove. I don't think it's necessary to try to bring somebody in here and start from scratch again, mixing up whether it's a low-level guy or a high-level guy. I'm going to throw one more point into here for you. The Eagles got a lot of high-priced players and a couple guys coming up that need extensions. You need young, controllable players on rookie contracts to balance that roster out. I think it's smarter to not make a trade right now and waste those 4 or 5 picks that you have of value for next year.
No, I do agree with that point. I would say, I guess it would be very unlike Howie to get involved in the mix today, at least in small value, like you mentioned. I brought this up with Scotty a couple weeks ago. I just don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying we couldn't use the help, right? Especially if you're talking one of the stars. Duh, you could put him anywhere, and he would just climb the list of talent, right, on the defensive line, whatever. But if you really go in depth, what changes, what additions are you going to make by 4 or 5 p.m. tonight that are going to improve the Eagles' chances at winning a championship? Because that's what today's really about, if we're being honest. And if you just go position group by position group, if you go in where the health is, right, if they're going to get healthy at tight end, wide receiver, whatever's going on, there's nowhere to go outside of defensive line, defensive end, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what are you going to go add a depth piece on the O-line? There's no need for it, right? Tight end, because you don't know what Goddard's health is. Well, Calcaterra doesn't look terrible, and let's not act like they use tight end 1 regardless when they're fully healthy anyway. Running back, no. Quarterback, no. Wide receiver, no. Everyone wants to talk about wide receiver 3. Are the Eagles going to get active? Remember when they were rumored for Cooper Kupp a couple weeks ago, Phil? You saw that?
I shot that down as quickly as I could. I didn't want to talk about it.
Like, they already whiffed on a wide receiver 3 trade to start the year. Made a big catch on Sunday, but still, it's a whiff as of right now.
That literally surprised his entire season's receiving yard on one catch. That's how much of a whiff it is.
Yeah. So they're not going to go out and add another there.
2-3 weeks ago when we were rumored to get Cooper Kupp, I said, I asked the question on this show that is one big trade. You're going to give up a first or second round pick, or say Max Crosby, a first pick and a third round pick and a future pick. Is that really going to take this team and all of a sudden lock them in as a Super Bowl contender? And I'm like, one player in the NFL, one player can't be the difference, I don't think, to not guaranteeing, because there's no guarantees in sports, but really give you that big of a push. And at that time, I didn't think the Eagles were Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now I think that they're still a good team, but I still don't think one move, because of how average the NFL is, outside of the Lions, outside of the Chiefs, one move doesn't make that big of a difference. Yeah. In my opinion.
It is tough. And look, I agree to an extent, right? Because not that this guy was Max Crosby or Myles Garrett, but Hassan Reddick was just in the building. And you're seeing him within 2 weeks already have an impact on a shitty Jets team and shitty Jets defense. But he was here when, we had 72 plus sacks in the Jonathan Gannon year and went to the Super Bowl. And it changed nothing when it got to that point. I understand they got to the ultimate level of getting to the Super Bowl, but it changed nothing at the end of the day. And then last year he was here and we saw, and he kind of no-showed like the rest of the defense, et cetera. So he's not Max Crosby. He's not Myles Garrett. I'm not trying to put him in that category, but they did have a very dominant, talented defensive end pass rusher on this team not too long ago, and it didn't push them over the hump, right? Max Crosby, Miles, it's tough because I think one of those guys instantly greatly improves your chances. Does it lock it in? Absolutely not. Like you said, there's no guarantees, but it would be interesting to see one of those top 3, top 4 guys on this defense right now.
What would be it? Just say the Raiders call Howie today and be like, "Yo, we're reconsidering. We might move Max Crosby. How much are you willing to mortgage to bring Max Crosby in here? I mean, you got to start with your first round pick this year, without a doubt. You probably got to throw in Bryce Huff, which doesn't matter. Yeah, in my opinion, it's going to take a first this year, a third either this year or next year, and a second either this year. So you're talking about 2 picks this year and at least 1 pick next year.
Yeah, and a player.
Yeah. Which Bryce Huff doesn't matter.
I mean, I would be lying if I said I'd be against it if the move got posted, right? At the second it says the Eagles are acquiring defensive end Max Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders, and then I go on and look at the package and I see that's the package, I'm not going to be hitting social media freaking out about what Howie Roseman gave up. It is a lot. And I don't know. I know you mentioned how the Raiders having him locked up. I don't know. It all comes with control too, right? And that drives the price up if control is there. It's just, you can't mortgage your future. You do see how important to hit on some of these early picks are when you have a Quinyon Mitchell, when you have a Cooper DeJean from this past draft class. You don't want to mortgage those picks for a guy that's going to come in for the next 3 months.
It also matters whether those players fit what Vic Fangio does.
Right.
Because you look at Bryce Huff obviously struggling here this year. I surprisingly, I think defensive tackle and the interior defensive line is a bigger issue, big picture moving forward than edge is, because you see Nolan Smith getting better. You see some of these guys, you see Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean getting after the quarterback. They're starting to use the slot blitz occasionally with Cooper DeJean. Jalen Carter's playing close to 90% of the snaps every single week now. That's a concern for me. Milton Williams has not taken that next step forward like we all expected. Jordan Davis is playing 25% of the snaps now. You know what I mean? And I know we've got these leads, so you're in more passing downs. I'm concerned about the depth at defensive tackle right now because of the fact that you have to. I don't mind Jalen Carter playing 90% of the snaps come playoff time. Yeah. But in week 8, that's a problem to me. That concerns me that we're forced to lean on him that much this early in his career.
It's also a concern that a former first-round pick from a few years ago is being phased out already in the new DC's system, Phil. I do agree.
Extremely concerning.
Yeah, so one's being overused in the middle of the season, one's being phased out. Another guy hasn't taken a leap, and outside of that, you really don't have the depth you're looking for. Like you mentioned, you never know what Howie. I mean, a few years ago, they had that issue. They went out and acquired Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph at the deadline and brought 2 D tackles in here. And I believe that is the year that we went to the Super Bowl in 22. So I think the major point here, everyone, is that defensive line, right? I don't think there's anywhere else to go. They're not going to make a move on offense. I don't believe. You get into the faces of the defense. Look at what the linebackers in Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond are doing right now. You get to the secondary. Where is a new piece fitting in, right? Like unless you went out and got a top 5 corner, which is obviously not happening. I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah. That's the only way a corner slotting in here. So defensive line is really the only reasonable spot that Howie Roseman will go. It's a spot he tends to go to often at the trade deadline, but I'm not going to be surprised if he doesn't do anything today, man.
Yeah. So here Adam's joking about a quarterback and everything. And you bring up Sue and Joseph. They were not trade acquisitions, I don't think. They were free agent pickups.
You are correct. You are correct. They had no teams.
Hear me out. Howie Roseman struggles with trades in season. He's great at the draft day trades or the off-season trades. In season trades, the last trade that he had that was successful was Jay Ajayi. Yeah. And what did we do that year? And a question I wanted to bring up today is: are we concerned with the running back position, the usage rate of Saquon Barkley? I mean, he touched the ball 31 times, 32 attempts. He dropped the 1 pass, but 31 out of 71 plays, he was touching the ball. And you have to. The offense clearly runs through him. And I guess you run it till the wheels fall off. But behind him, you got Kenny Gainwell. and Will Shipley, and that is it.
Not being
Is there, to me, I've been stewing on this all night long. Maybe that the Eagles should look, and the last successful trade he made was a running back that led us to a Super Bowl to help complement LeGarrette Blount. Is there a scenario where maybe a running back is, offensively speaking, the biggest need on this team?
Could be, man. I think
I'm just throwing a completely curveball your way.
I get you. The usage thing with Saquon's interesting because we pound the table week in and week out. You have to get 2-6 the ball. You have to get him involved. You have to go around him. And then he gets the 30 touches you're looking for, and it's week 9, and now we're going, do we want to do this every week before the playoffs? It's a 3-year deal, right? This is year 1. This is half the first year of year 1 of the 3-year contract. So I do get it. I would keep feeding him personally until he says he can't handle it. There is an interesting thing about Saquon, man, that I noticed when I was there on Sunday and even before is he'll wave over when he needs to come out. And I think that some other guys won't do that, and they'll put their bodies in harm's way at times because they're just a competitor. They want the ball. They want to be on the field. Not saying that he doesn't want the ball when I'm saying this, but he had like a 12-yard first down run on 1st and 10 and then just waved over. I don't know if he had to adjust something in his knee. Then he sat for 2 plays. Then he came back in. I think he's very good at managing his workload himself. So
I did notice that, and I think that is smart. Marshawn asking Dylan, what's with the wide open receivers? Way too much talent in the secondary. To me, that's more the scheme than anything else at the time.
Yeah, and there was, was it the final drive or the second to final drive? I think we had like a 4th and 17 or something, and Isaiah Rod, like we were just in a very, very soft zone. It was pitch and catch for 17 yards, but that's what it was. I think your spot. I don't think that. Look, Vic Fangio.
That's the sticks. That's the sticks defense coming back out. In Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio says that his guys have the freedom to line up and press coverage.
Yeah.
I think Vic Fangio's lying to you. Because you can't tell me that nobody wants to do it. No, like, all right, Darius Slay doesn't do it. No corner wants to do it. If they have the freedom to do it, none of them want to do it. They didn't do it last year. They didn't do it under Gannon. So it's all these defenses from the Fangio tree. Now you have Fangio himself. And we haven't had one corner that likes to get up and play press coverage, likes to bump at the line of scrimmage. I highly doubt they have the freedom to go out there and do that, and that's just more of his scheme.
Yeah, I agree. That Simmons guy in Tennessee, if we're talking defensive tackle.
Justin Simmons? Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Leave the team alone. We are gaining chemistry unless we get Myles Garrett. Or I'll throw Max Crosby in there, Todd, for you. I mean, this is where I'm leaning. This team is building momentum, chemistry. They're figuring out the new coordinators on offense and defense. Why mess with a good thing? We've got a tough, weird schedule with Dallas and Washington on a short week, so quickly there. A lot of road games again coming up on our schedule in a row. Just let this team be. You don't need to mix it up at this point, in my opinion. I think we're good where we're at, Todd, at this point.
No, I agree to an extent. I think if you're going out and getting a rotational piece in the trenches, I don't think that's going to mess with your chemistry like too much. Like if you go out, Zadarius Smith is the name I want. I think that's not the breaking the bank kind of move that we're trying to avoid, but it's also a little bit of a game-changing move. The last time I checked, he had like 5.5 sacks through 7 games this year. So I don't think they're going to get him. I think the Lions are going to be all over that today. But if you went out and got a guy of that caliber, that slightly above middle of the pack defensive pass rusher, I don't think like if he's coming in and just sharing snaps with Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham, I don't think you're effing up the chemistry from that standpoint, unless it was to take someone's job, right? And even then, you have to worry about this team's Super Bowl aspirations more than you got to worry about people's feelings. But I do agree to an extent.
Duck is asking about safety upgrades because he thinks suspect is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Blankenship. I think it's weird. We really haven't talked much in the last week or two about the safety position, Duck, on this show. Reed's kind of quiet but effective.
Under the radar.
Under the radar is a good way. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has done a lot of boneheaded moves this year, but he's still, the missed tackles have kind of settled down. I don't know what I feel about the safety position at this point. Sidney Brown eventually will be a part of that safety conversation, I guess. James Bradbury might be in a few weeks. You never know. I don't know if I want an upgrade at that position or not because I don't know if we need it.
you can't upgrade it.
Yeah.
Where like you paid CJ Gardner-Johnson for what,
Mhm.
3 years, 4 years to come back?
Actually, I did see there's an out after this year on that contract.
Okay, that's
I
interesting. I
because
don't know.
we talked about this a few weeks ago when he
Yeah,
robbed Quinion of his interception. So I brought up his
yeah.
contract, and you could get out of it with a minimal cap hit after this year.
I just don't know that I'm ready to give up on CGJ yet. Like I don't
Yeah.
think like the miscommunications early on in the year, the missed tackles when you go back to Brazil and the
Mhm.
few weeks after that. But I don't think he's been that terrible over this winning streak.
Mhm.
Reed's been flying under the radar. I don't think that he's been a problem back there. James Bradbury's coming back soon, guys. Might
Yeah.
might get some
I-
depth
I-
there.
Why not? I think
Yeah.
this is a big thing here also from K1. I mentioned it before about why I don't want to trade. We can't afford Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. There is about $10 million in cap space left this year. Forget the exact number, but Howie really needs to and wants to roll that number over into next year because
Right.
there isn't a lot of cap space next year. And I forget which guys it will be, but there are going to be some of the younger guys up for rookie extensions, and
Yeah.
there's going to be guys that need contracts renegotiated next year. You need that minimal amount of money you have next year. You need that rollover from this year to kind of pad that. And I forget what Max Crosby, it's something like 20 some million dollars against the cap next year. If you do trade for Max, it's either Crosby or Garrett. It's like 20 some million dollars next year on the cap. That wipes you out. That cleans your closet. Your cupboard's bare after that. Plus, you gave up 3 draft picks to get them. So
and
that's why you probably
means
can't
nothing. It means nothing if Max Crosby's raising a Lombardi at the end of the year.
It's true.
But
it's true. It does. It's that picture, big picture versus this year's title. But is adding Max Crosby? Does that? I forget what their
and by the
number
way,
was.
I would like to point out right now we say it doesn't matter, and obviously like it wouldn't matter if you go out and win the Super Bowl this year. However, you know damn well even if we had that parade down Broad this winter, that come next offseason, we'd be right back to being pissed off that we can't go out and do anything. So.
Absolutely, because we can have. I mean, Nick Sirianni's 40-19 as the head coach, and we're still not happy with him. So you're never happy, but I guess it would ease the problem a little bit if you got that Super Bowl. It really would. But would making that move, would making any of the big moves, because Marshawn, you're saying a bruising running back. I agree, but that's a minor move. You're trading one of your 5th round picks or a 7th round pick to get a running back. We're talking about 3 or more 1st and 2nd and 3rd round draft picks on a team that you need to develop young players on. And does trading that you need an almost guarantee that you're winning the Super Bowl if you're moving all those picks.
Right.
And I don't know if you can do that. I mean, the Lions are going to get better. When whoever they trade for, they're going to be even better. The Lions, the Chiefs, is Max Crosby put you ahead of the Lions in the hierarchy of the NFC like that?
I don't know, man. Like
I've watched a lot of Lions football this year, and they are a damn good football
team.
They're damn
good.
With
they're
an
the best
average
team in the
quarterback,
NFC.
they're a damn good football team.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit with Jared Goff and Ben Johnson's system. But
it's even worse than I thought. It's $30 million Max Crosby's cap hit. That's literally everything for next year.
It's just tough.
That's a real tough pill to swallow.
Trying to balance maybe what the hope or expectations were coming into this year with this Eagles roster, this loaded offense and these rookies on the back end. And they, not that they had a slow start. We were 4-2 bitching about this team, but it was an ugly start and they haven't been healthy. So trying to balance out like, hey man, back in week 1 when they were beating Green Bay or leading up to the season, did I think the Eagles were better than the Lions or were they on the same tier as the Lions? Yeah, like probably that was my expectation. And now that they're hitting their stride, if they went out and got a guy like that, it'd be tough not to say they can't compete. But like you said, the Lions are just, I mean, dude, I know it's the Tennessee Titans. I get it. I think they had 52 points with 12 minutes left in the 4th quarter, like 2 weeks ago. Like that's, I mean, Jared Goff's had multiple games where he's like 23 of 23, 20 of 22. Yeah. Like they're so efficient. They have that 2-headed duo in the backfield that we're kind of talking about, acquiring next to Saquon, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Again, like David Montgomery is not a name that should flash off of the page at you, but it works in Detroit. Jared Goff works in Detroit.
Breaking news, Darius Smith has been traded to the Detroit Lions. I just pulled it up. Ian Rappaport reports the Browns are sending him and a 7th-round pick from 2026 to Detroit for a 5th-rounder this year and a 6th-rounder next year. So actually kind of cheap. You're basically swapping a 7th and a 6th in 2026 and giving up a 5th-round pick for Zadarius Smith right now. That's the first big move of the day, and it's a pretty cheap move right there.
That hurts. And do me a favor, chat and everybody else. Don't be one of those people that hits social media and starts bitching about why the Eagles didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like just because
they could have matched that offer.
Just because it was cheap doesn't mean the Eagle it could. There's a numerous amounts of reasons. Okay, that that the Eagles couldn't go out and get Zadarius Smith. However, that hurts because that is the name that I've been discussing over the last week and a half, and for him to go for that price is for them to attach. I know a 7th-round pick for the most part in the NFL, but for them to even attach the pick with him is kind of insane. So that stings.
So real quick, everyone's talking about the chemistry. I see Nick Sirianni's name being mentioned here, and I'd be remiss to not ask you some of your thoughts on Nick Sirianni. Obviously, the Detroit Lions are working well with the CEO style head coach, and Dan Campbell stays out of the way of Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator. That's probably why Ben Johnson stayed and didn't take a head coaching job, because he was given that assurance that it was his thing, his team, his offense. Obviously Nick Sirianni tried to cost us that game as many times as he could. And I listened to his press conference yesterday. The Monday after press conference is one of my favorites because it's all Zoom introed or done. So you can hear every question and every answer very clearly. And he wasn't backing down. He's like, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to be aggressive. I don't think I made the wrong decisions. The other team just stopped him. I've got the notes right here. His quotes, you know what I mean? Like, he is not backing down. What's the reaction going to be in this city if Nick Sirianni continues to coach like that? And that's what costs us a game in the playoffs.
Phil, if I was Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, 6-2 or not, 40-19, 41-19 or not, Super Bowl appearance or not, Nick Sirianni would not be the head coach today.
Yeah. Has that ever happened? A head coach fired at 6-2
after
winning a 4th game in a row? I wonder if any coach has ever been fired on a 4-game winning streak in any sport, period.
I highly doubt it. Phil, the Eagles had over 230 more total yards of offense than the Jacksonville Jaguars did on Sunday. They possessed the ball for over 18 more minutes than the Jacksonville Jaguars did on Sunday. Even before the Nakobe Dean interception in the end zone to seal the deal, they were winning the turnover battle. The offense was humming. And still, with a minute and a half left in the game, the Jacksonville Jaguars had a ball to the end zone from our 15-yard line with a chance to win it. That is solely because of Nick Sirianni yesterday. And the problem is, it's not the first goddamn time he's done it this year. We all remember the controversy at the end of the Atlanta games. Yes, Saquon should have caught the ball, but there's a lot of back and forth on the play called, the decision to go for it, to not take the field goal in the first half, to throw the ball, etc. We all remember what happened in New Orleans the very next goddamn week. And now here we are. And he seemed to stay out of the way the last 3 weeks prior to this when they were winning. Mm-hmm. It seemed like, Kellen Moore's offense is getting implemented. Nick's been fine. He's not in a problem since the issue with the fans after the Browns win, etc. And then here he comes right back into the limelight. Dude, you took 9 points off the board. I'll be transparent. If you kick an extra point and there's a penalty on the defense, and you can move it to the 1-yard line with what you have in your bag with the tush push. Yes, I am for accepting the penalty, taking that point off the board, and tush pushing it. By the way, I believe it was on that one. Jalen Hurts got to the goal line.
Yeah, that's true.
He got
the refereeing was not good. The refereeing was not good on Sunday.
So to Nick's defense in that part, I would have went for it there, and it should have been a 2-point conversion. Good attempt.
Yeah.
But everything else, man, everything else this dude is doing, taking 3 points off the board. Again, if it was 4th and 1 in the second quarter with like 5 minutes to go at Jacksonville's 30-something, and you wanted to tush push it, I guess I'm okay with it. Phil, stop going for the 4th and 4s, 4th and 3s. Stop.
Yep.
Stop doing it. Okay, take the points. Then you had the 4th and 1 later in the game where he rolls Jalen out. You can't tell me that was a Kellen Moore play call. You can't convince me of that. So that this is probably another instance of Nick injecting himself into the play calling duties in the middle of a game for no reason. And then to top it all off, it's the same thing he did in New Orleans. Jake Elliott sits ice cold in chilly weather in November in Philadelphia for 3.5 quarters. And then Nick says, hey, Jake, in a 5-point game, come here for a second. Let's kick a 58-yarder from the logo and try to put us up by 8. When, by the way, Phil, your defense has only given up 15 points in this ball game. How about, Nick, you punt them deep and make Jacksonville, who had less than 200 total yards of offense, go the length of the field at that point and score a touchdown to beat you. Dude, he is so ass backwards. I'm all for being aggressive. There's limits.
You said you were there on Sunday, right?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously we can hear the boos on TV. Obviously the decision making was getting booed by the fans in attendance. But what was the vibe in attendance? Like, to me, I kind of feel like if I was there, I would have been able to sense like a lot of nervous energy from was there that nervous energy vibe going around the stadium, even though you guys were billing to voice your opinions? Were you guys nervous and worried at that point?
I mean, when you look up and see a 22-point lead disappear in kind of the blink of a goddamn eye because of the, obviously we all see Saquon's leg get hit on the way down and then, not be overturned. Again, we're all seeing the same camera view that the refs are seeing. No idea. But you look up and all of a sudden at that point, I believe it was 22-15 at that. So it's like you look up and it's like, oh boy, here we go. And then you just keep having Nick interject himself. And it was at the moment that Jake missed the field goal that at least in the 200 levels, I was in 202 where you heard some things and you heard some boos, and it wasn't directed towards Jake Elliott. It wasn't towards the kicker missing a field goal.
No.
I know that irritates a lot of us when kickers miss, field goals and extra points. No one was really mad that Jake Elliott missed a 57, 58-yard field goal at that point in time. Everyone was freaking out like, dude, you just left him. Like, Phil, Jake Elliott doesn't even do the kickoffs. The punter, Braden Mann, kicks the ball. So Jake Elliott literally sat on the sideline after the first extra point attempt and did not move on the field.
I love how fired up about this one specific situation you are right now.
It's just so asinine to me because I didn't know he defended it. Like you just told me about the press conference. I didn't see that. I didn't know he defended it.
He defended all his decision making in the press conference. Basically, I'm going to paraphrase. Basically, saying that he, it's the identity of the team. It's the identity of his coaching staff. If he backtracks on it now, then basically he's saying that he'll lose the team if he changes who he is. By the way, you're getting a lot of criticism for your hat. Backward hat in the chat right now, just so you know.
I get it. You guys don't have to respect
and stuff like that.
That's fine. So. And I saw the first one. That's why I was messing about the tilt. I don't know if it's just how much space is here and because my hair's low. It's not just sitting on my head like this. I hope you guys know that. Like, I'm not just walking around like this. Okay, like the hat is fully on the head. It's just
you're wearing a hat. I should have a hat on with this fro I got growing right now. The Cleaver hat. I wonder, is that a Sopranos reference, K1? Because I hope it's a Sopranos reference. If you're saying a Cleaver hat, Sirianni is making his own bed. He is. Yeah. He's going to see. Here's the thing. Like the Sirianni, and you talked about, if you were Jeffrey Lurie, you would have fired him already, even after the 4-game winning streak. Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman have never been afraid to meddle in season. I mean, we can go back to Doug Peterson when he got called into the principal's office after beating Green Bay by running the football too much, and Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman were not happy with it. So they pulled him into the office and said, "Yo, you've got to do what we want more often." But here in Nick Sirianni's case, they seem afraid, or they're just not doing it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of confusing because while Nick Sirianni's sticking to his guns on going for it on 4th down, taking points off the board, whatever it is, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman
9 points, Phil. Not 2, not 3, 9.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I lost every one of my parlays because I had -7.5 in every single one of my parlays on Sunday.
Dude, You asked me how the crowd was, and I think that's another thing we were kind of getting very frustrated at. Even though you had, a couple referee issues and reviews not go our way for some reason. Excuse me. At one point when Jacksonville got to 23, it was 28-23. And I'm sitting here like, it should be 37-20. Like, even with all this going on, it should still be a 14-point lead if he just does the normal head coaching duties. And I think that's the biggest thing when you're talking about him making his bed, man, is you mentioned it earlier about this. What did you reference? It's like Dan Campbell does in Detroit, how he's just
the
like
CEO.
The CEO, right? He's just that he's there to lead and communicate and inspire and just manage things, right? He's not calling the plays on offense or shouldn't be. He's not calling the plays on defense and shouldn't be. He's just there to manage the game. Mm-hmm. And this is now the second time in 8 games where he has greatly put his team at a disadvantage. New Orleans and this week, he nearly lost the game for this team. The issue with this one more so, Phil, is not only did he take more points off the board than before, etc., is at least in week 3 against New Orleans, the offense had struggles, right? They were moving the ball, but Jalen turned the ball over in the end zone. He fumbled the next possession down in New Orleans territory. They were shooting themselves in the foot as well. The offense was incredible. Yeah. I mean, there were so many moments. Jahan Dotson's catch, contested catch, Devontae Smith's catch, Saquon Barkley's ass backwards hurdle. Jalen Hurts was phenomenal. The offense was moving the ball at will, and you were the last thing to point at. You were the only thing to point at and go, oh my God, we might lose this game because of blank. And it would have been Nick Sirianni as the answer.
I want to bring this comment from Stevie Fuentes. I hope you are well this morning, my man. The players can win despite Sirianni's decision-making versus the Jags. When it's the playoffs, it won't work. And I bring this comment up and want to address it because it's something that I talked about. I think I talked about it yesterday on this show. Dylan, you've known me for a while. You know I'm not a Rob Thompson guy, and I've been saying it for a long time. The Phillies win with talent despite Rob Thompson. That's how they got to 95 wins this year. But come playoff time, Rob Thompson's style, some of his decision-making caught up to them in the playoffs. And I think this is the same situation with Nick Sirianni. We're going to win 11 games, 12 games this year probably, with Nick Sirianni and his way of doing business. You look at the schedule, you got Washington and Baltimore. They're your really tough games. But outside of that, there's a lot of wins left on the schedule. But when you go against the Lions in the playoffs, when you go against the Green Bay Packers for a second time in the playoffs, when you go against Washington in the playoffs, Nick Sirianni's aggression is going to come back to bite them in the ass. And I think Steve here is spot on with his breakdown here. It works against bad teams. It's not going to work against the good teams.
It's the unnecessary aggression, Phil. That's the problem. Because if you go back to 2022, he was aggressive. He was aggressive in the NFC Championship game. He was aggressive in the Super Bowl. And his offense was humming. And it was the defense was the reason we lost in that Super Bowl, right? So I'm okay with being aggressive. And you're going to have to be aggressive to beat a Lions team or to beat Patrick Mahomes in the big game. You're going to have to. The problem is you have to calm down in moments. When it's the first quarter, take the field goal at the 30-yard line. When it's 4th and 4, punt. Like, do those little things. If it's 4th and 1, 4th and a yard and a half, I'm all for the aggressive Nick Sirianni. But there's moments in which you have to choose to do so and choose not to do so. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's what bit the Lions last year. Dan Campbell's aggressiveness, the overzealousness was too much in the big spot. He did a little too much. And that's why a big reason they were sent home and people were scratching their heads. Yes, I agree 1,000% though. You beat the Jacksonville Jaguars with Nick Sirianni calling the game the way he did. You'll beat the New York Giants. You'll beat the Cleveland Browns. You will not beat the Detroit Lions, especially in Detroit in the NFC Championship game or the divisional round of the postseason. You will not beat the Green Bay Packers. You know, I know we beat them week 1. It said it was a good win. You're not going to beat them come January if Nick Sirianni's managing the game that way. Matt LaFleur will run circles around him.
So if Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman are so content on meddling when they shouldn't be meddling, why all of a sudden are they not meddling when they shouldn't be meddling? They meddle. when they should be meddling, they're not. I know Jeffrey Lurie's a little distracted selling $800 million worth of his team right now to somebody. That might have him a little distracted. But, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, we always want consistency from everybody, our players, our coaches, our teams. Well, they're not consistent in the message that they're selling right now because they're not getting involved to solve this problem. And again, I am not saying that they should fire Nick Sirianni right now. I know they're not going to.
It's hard to do after a win.
And it's hard to do when you're 6-2. I'm not suggesting they should break it up right now. I'm just saying it makes no sense that they're not meddling a little bit here.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't call him into your office and simply put, Nick, if you ever take that many points off the board again, you will not be able to access the building card tomorrow. It's that simple.
It'd be like that commercial, the Monday Night Football commercial, when Kelsey tried to go in the locker room and the face recognition forgot his face already and everything.
And Big Tom
your
gave
face
him
will be wiped from the database.
Because look, no one's saying, Nick, you can't be aggressive. No one's saying it has to take your personality has to come back out of it and things have to go back to the way they were during Tampa Bay. And, when the players had that meeting during the bye week and they want Nick's personality to come alive. And that's when he's at his best. And that's what we're seeing right now. No one's saying you can't be aggressive. But I think if me and you and the chat and every other Eagles fan is noticing it, because that's the biggest problem for me, Phil. Honestly, how our fan base is so divided. It's always been divided. It was divided over Carson Wentz. It was divided over Jalen Hurts. It's been divided over head coaches. It's been divided over games and the blame game, etc. I was around almost 70,000 people on Sunday afternoon. No one had a difference of opinion in what he was doing. It was all, and that's when you're on the wrong side of things.
When everyone
is in agreement in this fan base that you are doing the wrong thing, the owner and the GM will be able to know when it's too much. No one's saying you don't have a leash. No one's saying on 4th and 2 you have to be scared for your job to go for it at the 35-yard line. No one's saying that. But when you end up taking 9 points off the board come fourth quarter and the Jacksonville Jaguars have snuck back into the game primarily because of your actions, I don't know that you can continue to get away with it.
So I want to bring up Todd's question here because I do want to get to Sixers talk with you, and I have one other topic I want to get to here.
What did I stay up for last night, Phil?
Yeah, exactly. You stayed up so I didn't have to talk about the game. Will A.J. Brown be ready for the Cowgirls? First and foremost, the first point of it seems like the reports are that his knee is just banged up. It's day-to-day, not week-to-week. So there is, in theory, a chance that A.J. Brown is ready for Dallas. But you got a short week after that against Washington, a much more important game. Dallas is missing Dak Prescott. He's already been ruled out for weeks on end. CeeDee Lamb's on the fence, whether he's day-to-day or week-to-week. The Cowboys are completely falling to pieces.
Disarray. It's a beautiful
thing. In your mind, would it be best for business to just tell A.J. Brown, take another day, take another game off? We got this. The Cowboys, I know Cooper Rush is 5-1 as a starter for the Cowboys. And after what we just saw against Jacksonville, there's no lock win period. But we've won a few games without A.J. Brown this year. If you were in charge, would you be telling A.J. Brown to just take a break?
Yeah,
here this week?
I mean, the only way A.J. Brown is playing in this game on Sunday for me is if he is 100% healthy. If the doctors and he say, I promise you, I am good to go. There is no fear of further, injuring this knee, right? Obviously, any injury can occur on any given Sunday, so it's not, I promise you I'm good, nothing's going to happen. Anything can happen, fluky. But in terms of that knee getting worse, if he's 100%, sure, go play the game. However, you mentioned the short week against Washington is a pretty big factor here. But if it's no Dak Prescott, that defense is still beat up. They're in total dysfunction, dude. If there's no possible CeeDee Lamb, it's a very winnable game even without A.J. Brown, and that's after seeing the ugliness that we've seen with this Eagles offense when you don't have A.J. Brown on the field. But since A.J. Brown has come back post-bye week and everything has kind of started to change and click for this offense, you've gotten a different Jalen Hurts. And I think when A.J. Brown went down in the second quarter and never returned in the second half, I think you saw a different version of Jalen Hurts than week 2, week 3, week 4.
Absolutely agree.
And I think that's a confidence builder as well. I think Jahan Dotson maybe can have 3 receptions on Sunday if A.J. Brown doesn't play now.
Three?
I think. Yeah.
Lock that bet in. Over under 2.5 receptions.
So,
hit the over. Go smash that bet right now.
Yeah.
Big House saying Sirianni reminds him of Will Ferrell and Cowbell skit. Go for it. Go for it. We need more. Go for it. It's 4th and 37 from the 1-yard line. Go for it. I love that. It's funny you say that about Jalen Hurts and how different he looked even in the second half. And I kind of said it in like the description of the show and the promotion of the show. Is this the best version of Jalen Hurts we've seen the last 3 or 4 weeks? Because I kind of feel like, and I know that the big passes to Saquon and Devontae get all the flash and the whatever.
Right.
There was a throw, and I don't know, in the stadium when you're there, sometimes you miss some plays or you don't really zone in. There was a 3rd and 6 before the touchdown. It was around midfield. It was the Devontae Smith touchdown drive. And Devontae Smith was on the left side of the field running across the middle, or maybe it was a slant route. And there's 2 defenders crashing on him, and Jalen Hurts put a dime on Devontae Smith's back shoulder across the middle for the first
and it
down.
looked like a bad throw, like it's behind him, but it's on purpose.
But it was perfect placement. Yeah. He put it with authority. He threw it with confidence. He stepped. He followed through. Like the confidence. Jalen Hurts 4 or 5 weeks ago doesn't have the confidence to make that throw. This might be the best version of Jalen Hurts we've seen, at least since the Super Bowl.
No, I completely agree, dude. I said this yesterday. There is you mentioned confidence. There is a crispness, a decisiveness to what he's doing. And it has a lot to do with him. And I think it just has to do with them getting healthier and just getting acclimated to this Kellen Moore offense, Phil. The situations they're putting him in, the pass protections, the play calling they're doing. There was a play that really stood out to me. And I went back and watched the clip. And we've seen Jalen operate from under center more over the last 4 weeks, right?
Absolutely.
And it has to do with the running game, right? Saquon gets, a little bit more of a head start, can run a little bit more north-south in that position. But they've been using different guys at the fullback position, right? Ben Van Smeren, I think Anais Smith or someone was back there on the play I'm thinking of. But they had the fullback to the left, Saquon back there, play action, bootleg, roll Jalen out to his right. And it was just like, basically when he rolled out, it was plant that back foot. Smith comes over to slide the protection, and he delivers a deep crosser to Devontae Smith on the left boundary.
I know which one you're talking about now. Yeah,
like he knew exactly where he was going with the football. The play design was beautiful. The protection was beautiful. And I think there's just a confidence within him operating this new Kellen Moore offense where it's quick, it's clean, it's decisive, and it's confident, man. You go back to New Orleans, he threw that interception in the end zone, and you can't see it on TV, right? Like when we're watching at home, you can't always see where the ball's going. You felt a little pit, right? Like you weren't confident in Jalen Hurts. If you saw the ball being delivered downfield, you're like, where's this going? Boom, interception in the end zone. I have none of that, right? Over the last 3 weeks, I have none of that. I am uber confident in where Jalen Hurts is deciding to go with the ball and how the ball is getting there, man. This is the most.
It's been 9 weeks. He's finally understanding the offense from Kellen Moore.
Yep.
Also, I think you've noticed in the last 2 or 3 weeks, especially, that it just seems more and more like Kellen Moore's offense.
Yes.
More and more like Nick Sirianni's being way too aggressive on the 4th down calls, on the 2-point conversions, all that stuff. But even from the get-go, hell, we scored in the first quarter. We got points last week in the first quarter or the first drive. Went to the second quarter, but you're seeing less and less Sirianni on the basic parts of the offense, and more. Well, I forget who it was. Like after week 2 or 3, sharing Kellen Moore's offensive the route tree for Kellen Keenan Allen.
And the motion percentages were so far down.
Exactly, and now all of a sudden you're seeing it. You're seeing jet sweep. You're seeing all different things that we expected to see, and you're seeing it more and more every week. So that's a positive thing there. And now all of a sudden Jalen's confident. Comfortable.
Correct.
I think comfortable is just as important of a word as confident right now.
Yeah. And by the way, this is about the 3rd or 4th straight week. You are seeing emotion out of our quarterback after a big runner. So something we haven't seen in the past, Phil, and I've been asking for it since day one because you're not a robot. You're not just stoic. You're not some poetry professor after each and every game, right? There's a learning lesson with everything in life. You're not. I know there's more to the human being, and I think you're seeing it now, year 4, year 5. Jalen Hurts finally being comfortable. There is a moment in each and every one of these games, these wins, where he picks up a play with his legs. That's another thing we didn't really talk about. That burst seems like it's getting back to 2022 Jalen. There's one more thing I wanted to mention about Kellen Moore. I don't know if it was the same way this week as it was against the I guess, who was it 2 weeks? Oh, the Bengals 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
There's a big difference in how I know, right? What does Nick love to do? Nick, for whatever reason, loves to set up the run off the pass.
Yes.
How many times do you see 1st and 10 throw, incompletion, 2nd and 10 run, drive staller, everything? If you go back to that Cincinnati Bengals game, the Eagles scored on every possession except for one. They punted on one, okay? The
Okay.
one they punted on, they went pass, pass, run, pass, pass, pass. Every
Okay.
other drive started with a run on 1st down, and in multiple instances, the first 2 or 3 plays of the drive were Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts runs. They're setting up play action. They're setting up the bootlegs, the under center stuff. They're setting up the pass downfield off of Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts' legs compared to what they were doing earlier in the year, which was let's throw the ball the first 6 plays of the game, and then we'll start to get Saquon implemented.
That's what later. I thought you were going to go with, because I actually last week we talked about that after the Bengals game. I tracked the opening drive of every game, and last week against the Bengals was the first time they ran the ball in the opening drive.
Look at that.
More than they passed, and guess what? It was the first time they scored points on the opening drive.
It's crazy.
Rocket go figure, you know what I mean? So that's where I thought you were going with that. Guys, you're watching Trending in the AM right here on the STT Sports Network. I am Phil Stiefel, your host, and we got Dylan Davis sitting in with me here today from DSM Media. Guys, I linked his YouTube channel in the description on the YouTube page. Guys, make sure you go check it out. Hit the subscribe button. He and Scotty do great work. Some of you guys in the chat already know Dylan and Scotty from DSM Media, but please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and if you've done that already, please hit the share button and tell a friend, tell one, tell all to hit the subscribe here as well. Dylan stayed up late last night specifically for this show. He stayed up. What time did the game end? About 1 a.m. last night?
Yeah, shortly after.
Shortly after 1 a.m. The Sixers played last night in Phoenix. I hate West Coast games, West Coast trips. Being a early riser like I am, they're not easy for me to stay up for, but they're on one right now. And Paul George made his debut last night. And I did stay up and watch the first quarter because I wanted to see Paul George out there. They said he was going to be on a minute restriction. He played just over 30 minutes last night. And it was a close game. From the box score, from the highlights, from what I've read, despite the fact that Paul George was a little rusty, it looked like that the Sixers played a better version of themselves last night.
Yeah, they were a competent basketball team.
What's that?
They were a competent basketball team last night.
Competent. Okay. I thought you said confident. I was like, what? Competent. Okay. So first and foremost, let's dive into the Paul George, debut last night. Obviously a little rusty on his shot last night. But what did you see from Paul George? Is there anything that you can see last night that made you feel good about this team going forward because they got their big guy back?
1,000.
One of their big guys back.
1,000%, man. He was not efficient. He did not shoot the ball well. He took the last shot of the game. I don't love the shot selection. I don't know if you saw a clip or not, but I don't know if it was Grayson Allen. He took someone off the dribble, and we were down by 2, and he took like the deepest 2-pointer you could possibly imagine. He was a half a step inside the 2-point line. It rattled out. It was a clean shot. It was a clean look. He raised up over him, didn't fall. I just don't like that you took such a deep 2 with the game on the line. Either take the 3 or try to get to the rim and put pressure on the rim. But with that said, the pressure on the rim is what I want to talk about, dude. He wasn't efficient. What did he finish? 4 for 14, 1 of 7 from 3. The numbers don't tell the whole story, man. The Sixers offense finally looked like an NBA offense because of what Paul George brings to the table. The pressure on the rim he brings to create for others. They started out shooting poorly from 3. I think as a team, they missed their first 5 or 6. Phil, what did they end up shooting? All right, they shot 39.2%. They were 20 of 51. They took a lot more. They made a lot more. They went on a heater of making like 9 of their next 15 team threes. Because of the open looks Paul George was able to create by getting downhill at the rim. Drummond was terrible, but in the short minutes he had with Drummond, he was able to get a little bit of a 2-man game where he would draw Drummond's guy over, get a bounce pass, Drummond would dunk, finish. Same thing with Yabusele. Just Paul George's ability to create, his ability to play make. By the way, I think we do forget that he's not a center. Paul George is 6'8", 6'9", gets up there. He helps immensely with the rebounding duties in short minutes as well. Shorter minutes, I guess I should say. Just everything he brought to the table last night, besides efficiency, was a positive for the Sixers team. And the willingness to take 7 threes. And I know he only made 1, and it sucks. But without Paul George, and you don't have Joel Embiid to create that space and that gravity on the floor, they just weren't creating open looks. Tyrese Maxey was taking 8, 9, 10 threes, and everyone else was just trying to get a look when they can. Paul George is willing and able to shoot the ball. He can play make. He can handle the rock. He did so many positive things, except finish last night, essentially.
Well, so I want to address that first. We'll get into the rest of what you said there in a second. But I did see a video this morning where he addressed that, and he thought they were only down 1 versus 2, is what he said in his post-game messages. Hence why he took the shot that he took, was because he just misunderstood the moment of the game. Maybe that's a little bit of him just not playing yet this year, whatever. But my question is, and I see, Todd asking, not sure about his killer instincts or will to win. And I know it's going to be a question when you've got Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. Tyrese Maxey's played the entire year, not shot well this year, but whatever. Is Paul George the right guy to be taking the last shot in that situation over Tyrese Maxey? And I think it is. I think that's why you go out and you get Paul George, you pay him that money. It's not a knock on Tyrese Maxey.
No.
But Paul George is the guy that's made the big shots, that's not afraid to create his own shot. Yeah. He's got the size, like you mentioned, so you're not worried about a 6'6" guy guarding 6'1" Tyrese Maxey and having to make a tough fadeaway shot. He can get up and get over whoever's defending him on any shot.
Which he did.
So are you okay with Paul George being the guy in the first game to take the last shot?
I know a lot of people aren't going to be. I do agree with you. I am fine with it. I just think I think it's circumstantial. I think it can be a game-to-game kind of thing, because last night is a night where you probably do want to see Maxey get the ball, simply because Maxey was way more efficient. And in the second half specifically, late in the fourth quarter, dude, Tyrese was trading buckets with Kevin Durant. Like, one of the greatest scorers ever. Trading buckets in Kevin Durant's mitt. And Paul George wasn't efficient. At that point, he must have been 4 of 13. Maybe it's just, Maxey's got the hot hand. You do want to see it. But I do have no problem with Paul George getting the last shot. I'm not going to be one of those people up in arms that say, this has to be Maxey's moment. This is Maxey's team. Paul needs to take it back. No, I'm definitely not going to do that. It was the good shot. It was a clean shot. And honestly, Phil, like it spun around. Like it was not like it wasn't clank. He didn't miss bad. It went halfway down. They got a tip out to Maxey. He caught it, put up a 3, but didn't get it off in time because there's like half a second left. But I'm completely fine with Paul George getting that look. The killer instinct, man, it's going to be a conversation all year, because it's been a conversation about Paul George's career. There's been moments in the playoffs where he has raised up from 40 feet and ended games and ended series. Like, he has killer instinct, but he's just come up short on different teams with some help around him. So obviously fans are going to question that. The thing I wouldn't say is, at the end of it, the will to win. I just don't know what that has to do. Like, he wanted the ball. Yeah. He weighed all tired. That's a will to have the ball in your hands late in the game and want to win. So I wouldn't take it that far.
I wouldn't take it that far. I would take it on the other end on Tyrese Maxey, that the one criticism I've always had on Tyrese Maxey's career so far, and it's a young career, and he's still only, 23 years old, is that Tyrese Maxey always deferred to the star. He always deferred to Joel Embiid. He always deferred to Tobias Harris. He always deferred to James Harden. He always was deferring. And I want to get back to, Steve, your comment about veteran leadership, because remember, we did just trade Paul George for Tobias Harris, basically. But, I wonder how much of it was Paul George wanted the ball there, and how much of it was still Tyrese Maxey's own insecurities, that he's like, no, you're the better player. You're the veteran. You get the shot in this moment.
Yeah, it's tough. And then it also comes down to...
I'm torn on that. You know what I mean?
I am too. And it also comes down to, head coaches in the NBA it's a players' league. Players go out and win games, right? So head coaches don't have as much to do with it as we like to put the blame on them. Like, they can be bad. Like, obviously, if you see what Doc Rivers is doing in Milwaukee, they can have a negative impact on your team. But it does beg the question, right? Nick Nurse didn't call a timeout. I think we had the ball with 18 seconds left and counting when we inbounded the rock. So it's like, do you call a timeout if you're Nick Nurse, right? Do you insert yourself into this and say, I'm drawing something up for Tyrese, or Tyrese, the ball's in your hands because it's your night? He doesn't. Like, and then you mentioned it. Like, Paul's the one that gets the inbound. Like, it's not like Tyrese got the inbound. Paul said,
real quick, did they have timeouts left at that? So I saw the play, but I didn't see that there was timeouts, because there was no Nick Nurse timeout to draw it up.
I wasn't paying attention to the screen, but Kate Scott said Nick deciding not to use a timeout here, letting him play. So I'm assuming they did. Yeah, like I guess what I would say is if they inbounded to Maxey and he was bringing the ball up to half court and Paul said, "Yo," and he was like, "All right, here." Okay. They inbounded it to Paul. Tyrese came over and Paul's like, just, he got the switch he wanted. I don't know. It's going to be a learning curve. And that's the thing I think people need to remember is this was night one. It just so happened to end in that fashion where it came down to a last shot decision. But this was night one of just them two together and not even the three together. So there's going to be a lot of growing curves. I do see a lot of comments. That's the shitty part. They are 1-5. That's it. It sucks. There's just such a long NBA season, man. And you look around the Eastern Conference, there's teams that have 2 or 4 wins right now that aren't going to be there towards the end of the year. There's also teams just like us. Like if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you think we're upset? We have no Joel Embiid and Paul George, basically. If you're the Milwaukee Bucks, all you have is no Chris Middleton, and you can't win games. So there's going to be a lot that changes over the coming months in the NBA season. 1-5 is just a deflating start.
It's a tough road trip, and Todd, we'll get to the Joel Embiid situation in general with Marcus Hayes in a few minutes here with him, but until we get the full complement of players, we're just really never going to know. Do you think Nick Nurse, and I'm just looking at the box score outside of the first quarter? I didn't watch the game last night. You saw almost no minutes for KJ Martin, almost no minutes for Jarrett McCain. You got a lot of minutes out of Yabusele last night, and he played well. I don't love Yabusele playing 30 minutes. I don't love Yabusele taking 14 shots. But what did you think of the first night with Paul George, the way the rotation went? Because I've had question marks about the rotation throughout the entirety of the season, but there was no Paul George. Now you've got Paul George and the rotation. You had a lot of Kyle Lowry minutes. You had a lot of Yabusele minutes, and some of the other guys I thought should have gotten minutes didn't get the minutes last night.
I would say I think it was a combination of who had the hot hand last night. Yes, it's not normal to see Yabusele take 14 shots.
See, if you really pay attention quarter by quarter, there have been multiple games this year at halftime where Yabusele was second on the team in shots. Multiple times this year at halftime.
It's crazy.
It was Maxey and Yabusele in the first half of a whole bunch of games. Well, whole bunch. There's been 6 games this year.
Right, right. And shorthanded. No, I get it. Yabusele was great last night, though. 5 for 11 from 3. 3 offensive rebounds. Continued to crash the glass like always. Playmate. Kyle Lowry, dude. I know he's not going to continue this. He's been their best 3-point shooter through the first 6 games. He just comes in and inserts, energy and scoring for this team right now. Gordon was good. I think it was a combination of those guys playing well and then the others not, right? Like Yabusele, 30 minutes. I don't think that's just because Yabu was playing very well. Drummond was a effing nightmare last night, dude, from the opening jump. 15 minutes tells you all you need to know. He was so bad. He had, how many turnovers did he end up finishing with? Or maybe not all were credited to 5 turnovers in 15 minutes, Phil. And I think one of them they might have credited to Maxey because it hit him in the hands running up court. It was Drummond should have never thrown the ball in traffic there. So he was terrible. He was getting beat on the offensive glass a little bit. He was lazy with his passing. So you had that mixture. Jared McCain, only 3 minutes, hit a 3. Love that. Back-to-back possessions, and Nick had a call timeout. He's freaking out. Jared McCain, I don't know if we were in a zone or what we were doing. He was in the bottom right corner, and he got caught watching the ball, the top of the key, both times. And it was a backdoor pass for a dunk on his side. And I think that's immediately when Nurse said, come sit next to me and learn about this because I can't have you out there right now. So I think that's it. I think
then that makes sense on because the KJ Martin, I didn't get the preseason hype of KJ Martin. I know he's a nice young player. The little I saw last year and in preseason, everyone's like, this guy's got to start over Caleb Martin. He did early in the season. He's not. Wasn't concerned there. I was more leaning towards the Jarrett McCain from not watching the game. Your description on why Jarrett McCain didn't get the minutes, and I know Kyle Lowry is shooting great right now, but I kind of feel like, unique Kyle Lowry's leadership and veteran ability all season long. You shouldn't be playing him 28 minutes. You couldn't find 5 or 10 more minutes for McCain. Obviously, you explained it very well. He is a rookie, and he made some rookie mistakes, obviously, than last night.
Yeah, no, if there was one guy I can point to, I mean, he played 18 minutes, but you did talk about Kyle Lowry getting 28. Eric Gordon was a +8 in 18 minutes, 2 for 4 from deep. attacked basket. I probably would have gave Eric Gordon a couple more minutes of those Kyle Lowry minutes. I think they would have been a little more close to even, right? Maybe like 20, 24, 22, 25, 21, something like that. But yeah, that's really it for Nick Nurse. I will say this. It was interesting timing for today's show and how he looked last night, because yesterday morning I did talk about it. I know they're shorthanded. I know they didn't have Joel and Paul George for the first 5 games, but I was very uninspired by Nick Nurse in the first 5 games, man. Like I
asked the question on this show last week. I forget which game it was after. Is Nick Nurse a good coach?
Yes, I do think he is. I'm not going to take it that far, right? Especially being as beat up as they were, but just like you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when they're shorthanded as they are, you can understand losing last night, even though it sucked. You can understand losing to the Bucks on opening night, etc. You can't lose to the Toronto Raptors in Toronto when they're bad and missing their top 4 players outside of Scotty Barnes. I know Ja Morant came to town the other night, Phil. I don't know if you paid attention on Saturday night. That's a game they should not have lost. Like, yes, they had Ja Morant. They were missing like their next 6 guys outside of him and Jaren Jackson Jr. They had dudes I didn't even know were in the NBA. So, like, you can't lose to those bad, beat up teams simply because you're beat up, because you still should have more depth and talent than they do. That was my biggest gripe with Nick Nurse.
Because that's what this team was built on, right?
Stunk.
This team was built on the promise to the fans that we're deeper than ever before, right?
And I think, man, look, I think we're learning over the investigation into the Sixers, et cetera, that I think the fans' belief was correct. Something's fishy's going on here. You can't sell me that this is a load management plan to start the year for Joel. Right. There is some swelling or something going on.
Yeah.
So it's understandable from that perspective. But if there was a major load management plan in the works, it's getting a little scary early on. I'm not saying after 6 games you can abandon it, but we saw even without Paul George, and it's not like Paul George is going to play the rest of the games, Phil.
Right.
So we saw without the both of them, they don't even look like an NBA team.
No.
What position are you putting yourselves in if this load management plan continues? Because you're going to be the 8 seed, you're going to be the 9 or 10 playing team. You're going to make the playoffs, but play Boston or the Knicks in round 1 and then play the other again in round 2. What's the point? What are we doing? What did we build this for if that's what we're attempting to do? So now it's like, can I load manage these guys after 6 games? Because apparently we stink without them.
I see Todd saying that Drummond looks tired. And Drummond was brought in to be the load management guy for Joel Embiid, but he's being forced to play every game. Right. You know, at what point do if Joel Embiid's going to miss 20 more games to start the season, and then after he comes back, be load management, you might got to consider another center on this team. Unless you're ready to bring in a Dembona, to play meaningful minutes. You can't keep running 60-year-old Andre Drummond out there 30 minutes a game and expect him to be fresh at this point.
To give Nick Nurse and this team a little leadway here, and what the vision was for this team, when you take a 7-footer and that being your MVP and that being a guy that when he does play on a night is going to be 30, 35, 37 minutes in the regular season, the reflection of the depth looks different, because now what you have is your backup 7-footer playing a lot of minutes, not last night, but supposed to play a lot of minutes. And then you have what's supposed to be your backup power forward playing backup 5 ball. With Joel Embiid and this team fully healthy, the picture for the playoffs, the size is going to be an advantage for the Sixers. Something we haven't had in the past, because your 6'10" Yabusele isn't playing 5 anymore. He's going to be playing backup 4. He's going to be on the floor with Joel or on the floor with Drummond. You have 2 7-footers that are interchangeable. So the vision for this team is there. It's just being halted because, Joel Embiid.
Steve saying it's Bona time. What's funnier? It's Bona time, or Alec Boehm hits a bomer of a homer, or whatever, or the Alec Boemer I've got
Bona
from
time,
the homer.
Bona time's a good one, man. Bona time's a good
Bona
one.
time. I love it. Mitchie Pooh saying that Tom Pelissero says the Bears just traded Khalil Herbert to the Bengals.
That will go down as the weirdest unnecessary trade of the day.
The Bears are still kind of in it. The Bengals, I don't know.
I don't know.
A confusing one. Yeah, I'm not.
And it's
sure
Khalil Herbert in general.
Yeah, it's just Khalil Herbert. Yeah, exactly. Real quick, somebody asked about the Joel Embiid situation.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about the Kelsey situation to end the show with you. I don't know if you saw his statement on Monday Night Football pregame show last night.
I saw the short clip. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get to that in a little bit here. But obviously, the Joel Embiid situation in the locker room with Marcus Hayes, and I have it on good authority with some of my snitches that I got on the payroll, that there was actually punches thrown, but Sixers security have threatened to revoke media credentials if anybody actually shares any video or picture clips of it. But that notwithstanding, this whole Joel Embiid situation with Marcus Hayes, where do you stand on this situation?
I think it's very understandable. Like, look, first and foremost, let me say, like, I get it. Like, not only is violence never the answer, unless sometimes it is. Don't take that from me. But look,
sometimes it is, honestly.
You can't put your hands on people, especially in a workplace setting, and especially like because you're paid to try to be above everyone else. The problem is Marcus Hayes and the Penn State kid that we're going to talk about with Kelsey. The problem is, Phil, people think because these athletes are paid millions of dollars and because they wear a jersey and they're in the limelight and they're a celebrity that they're less of a human being or they're more robotic or something. The other part is this isn't the first time Marcus Hayes has referenced or brought up Joel Embiid's dead brother and son who's named after said dead brother. Like this wasn't a one-time thing. I will tell you this before we even get into the actual situation. I blame the Sixers. Yeah. I blame security. I blame Marcus Hayes should have never been allowed in the locker room right now in the heat of the moment. Right, you're going to tell me there was no smoke. There were no conversations being held behind closed doors about how Joel felt about this article and Marcus Hayes with his teammates, coaches, the organization, whatever. And then you put them in the same vicinity 24 to 48 hours later. That is on you.
That is a fantastic point because you know what? Marcus Hayes isn't a beat reporter. He's not Keith Pompey or Kyle Neubeck, who's there every single game, every single day. Marcus Hayes is like the Jamie Apodi with the Phillies situation a year or two ago. She uses her credentials and name to get in there whenever they feel like
want
it. So that is a fantastic point and an angle I never actually looked at it. It's on the Sixers. And honestly, I wanted to bring this up, a random thought, and I don't even know if I have the words phrased right to even bring this point up, that, I missed his comment and how Embiid, is on the trading block. This is, but that leads me to this opinion I'm still trying to formulate, that if the Sixers don't handle this situation right, we've never ever thought that Joel Embiid would ask for a trade out of Philly. But if the Sixers organization doesn't have his back the right way, and you're saying the Sixers organization failed with security here, this could be the tipping point. I know he just signed his extension. Yeah. This might be the tipping point that says Joel says, yo, if you guys don't got my back, I want out of here.
Look, I don't
know if I phrased that right, but
No, I get you. I don't think that is likely or going to happen, right? I think he's here to be a Sixer for the rest of his life.
I agree.
Think he'll get over it at some point. However, I do think it is a key piece because it can start at ownership. Like you can revoke, you can not have Marcus Hayes in the building, etc. But it's deeper than that, right? Like with how the organization, and maybe it's partly on him. Maybe he's the one that wanted to keep this hush hush. I don't know. But the way they've handled this injury and this load management start to the year and the lies they've kind of fed the fan base. Like I said this yesterday to Scotty, and Nick Nurse was getting testy. And over the weekend, before the incident with Marcus Hayes, he got testy to reporters and to the fan base, quoting how he's done too much effing stuff for this fan base.
That quote was taken out. That was directly in that quote. He says Marcus Hayes.
Yeah.
He directs that I've done too much because of the Marcus Hayes. He wasn't telling us fans that he was talking about Marcus Hayes in that situation.
Right. So you have this backlash right now and all this heat focused on them, and the Sixers get fined $100K, and he's got it. I mean, I don't know what the NBA's deal is with Joel Embiid, man, but he's got a technical foul for waving a towel on the sidelines before even playing a second yet. Now, who knows? Like, the NBA's investigating this. Like, does he end up suspended by the NBA, by this? I don't know what's going to happen. I do think it's an interesting point. Like, the Sixers need to have his back. Am I sure that Joel's going to have to put out a social media post or some sort of apology because the Sixers PR team says, look, man, we have to do this, right or wrong. I don't think you should have to, but in the business place, it's going to happen.
And that kind of leads to, Jason Kelce and how, Jason Kelce and Joel Embiid, I thought neither of them were wrong. You bring family into the equation. I always tell people I would never cop a charge for this or that. You talk about family, I'm copping a charge. I would have taken these situations much further than them, and me not being a celebrity, I would have ended up in jail. But that's another subject. But Jason Kelce goes out there on Monday Night Football, and whether it was, ESPN, whether it was who runs his podcast, Amazon, or whether it was his wife, Kylie, or whatever, telling him you've got to go make a statement. If you notice on Jason Kelce's quote unquote apology, he actually never apologizes for what he did. He just addresses it, and he used some really powerful words, which I'll address in a second. But, Joel Embiid, as you said, will have to give something. And, it would be very important for the organization and him and their trust in each other if he's allowed to make an apology while not apologizing, just like Jason Kelce. Does that make sense? I don't need you to go out there and say, I am sorry, Joel, Marcus Hayes, for putting my hands on you.
I was wrong to do
I was wrong for letting my emotions take over. And Jason Kelce's words last night were, I greeted hate with hate, and that was wrong. And I think they're powerful words in life in general. But as long as Joel Embiid says something along those lines, whoever wrote that statement for Kelce, needs to write the statement for Joel Embiid because he wasn't wrong. But he does need to address it and comment on it.
Yeah. First and foremost, with the Jason Kelce thing, man. First of all, this is incredible that this happened in a 12-hour span for us. A Philly legend and the star of the Sixers both getting into public or private, arguments and physical altercations, essentially, with people. The problem with people nowadays, man, and I don't even want to say this generation, I'm some boomer. I'm 26 fucking years old. I'm probably a part of this generation, okay?
You are a part of the generation.
Yeah, I'm talking that kid, let's just say, I don't know if he's 18, 19, 20, whatever he is up at Penn State. The younger generation, my generation, even people slightly older than me, man, that use their camera and social media as some sort of shield. The problem with the people nowadays, man, is it's a generation filled with people that have never been punched in the mouth.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's what it is. Because
it really is.
Listen, you have the freedom in this country. Speaking election day, right? You have the freedom in this country.
See, we're bringing it all full circle here.
You have the freedom in this country to say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
There are also consequences to your actions and your words.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing. If you've been punched in the face before, you might feel differently about going up to 6'2", 280-pound Jason Kelce, who literally moves Dexter Lawrence with his bare hands, and talking to him that way with your phone in his face, recording it, because all you wanted was a moment. You're recording, nothing's going to happen to you, and now you got your moment. He'll probably get something out of it too, Phil. He'll probably get a little something out of it because destruction of property, it's on camera, it's taped, etc. It's crazy.
I don't know if you're a Penn State fan or not. I'm not really a Penn State football guy or not. Penn State's had a lot of, even take the Sandusky situation out of it. Penn State's had its issues publicly, in the image of its fan base and its school for a long time. If Penn State wanted to help its image, Penn State would make a statement that we found that kid and we kicked them out of school.
Yeah. Honestly.
All they said so far is we're doing an internal investigation. That was basically what they said, and that was it.
Yeah, and look, again, it is such a fine line because I've been a drunk teenager, right? I've been drunk at 26, and you do, or maybe you say stupid things, and it would suck, right? If you're that kid's family, if you're that kid, if you're 18, a freshman there, and you got drunk on a Saturday and you did something stupid, and now your future might be ruined, or you're kicked out of your dream school, etc. But dude, you just can't do it. I also want to address the education at Penn State because
I don't know where this is going, but okay.
Because in what world does his insult even make sense? How dumb is this kid? Your brother is your brother's gay, essentially, because he's dating one of the most famous woman on the planet. What kind of education are we giving these kids at Penn State, Phil? It's a stupid statement.
What I think it really truly is, and you nailed it. I think the kid was just looking for his viral moment.
Yeah.
He was looking to get TikTok famous, or want to call it like that, and that's it. Trinidad says that being punched in the face doesn't change anything. He still talks shit.
Bullshit. See, but here's what you do.
If you've been punched
Trinidad,
by Jason Kelce, you ain't talking shit anymore.
Here's what you do. Here's what he does, right? Because look, I don't know you personally, and I do like you. I appreciate you for the sub and comment throughout the shows. But you troll throughout the shows, but you troll behind a faceless YouTube handle. Yeah. I promise you, brother, you saw Joel Embiid in person, you would not be saying the things you say on the internet to Joel Embiid's face.
Yeah. I agree with you 1,000%.
That or you're punch drunk. You've been punched one too many times.
Yeah, man. One too many concussions, from being punched and knocked out. Look, it is what it is. It sucks. And it is crazy that both these incidents happened on the same day. It really is kind of, it's kind of crazy. It's one big whirlwind of a Saturday. I'm like, I almost went live on Sunday morning just to talk about, just these two situations but what are the odds that they happen at the same time? But again, to kind of put this to bed, because I got into it yesterday with some of the guys in the chat, because I don't know if they were trolling or whatnot. There were some people in the chat yesterday taking Marcus Hayes' side, taking the kid at Penn State's side in this situation. I think you said it right. It is a free country. Your word, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
There are consequences. And there's consequences for the people, Joel Embiid and Kelce as well. But there are consequences for your words. And
here's the other thing, too, that slips under the radar with the Jason Kelce thing is, so the first kid said what he said. Jason takes his phone, smashes it. I didn't see this till the next day, but there's another camera angle of Jason continuing to walk. Another person, I believe, maybe the same kid, but I think another person saying something, not to that extent, but saying something. And I think Kelce went to pick up his phone or maybe pick up the second phone. And a kid pushes him, bumps him essentially.
I didn't see that.
Dude, you are lucky that you didn't get hands laid on you. Because now, I know it sounds dumb and it is destruction of property, whatever. But Jason Kelce went from smashing a phone to you putting your hands on him. Don't be surprised when hands get put on you.
Someone tried to say on social media that somebody like Jason Kelce should have security walking around with him when he's in a public place. But I kind of feel like that would, I can understand if Joel Embiid wants personal security in the locker room against Marcus Hayes, because that might fit his image a little bit better. But Jason Kelce is the everyman.
It's the aura of Jason Kelce.
Jason Kelce's the everyman. I feel like I can slide up to him next to it at a bar and just start knocking down shots and whatnot, even if I had no idea who he was. He's the every common man type person. And I think it would ruin his aura. That's the cool word these days, is aura.
Yeah.
If he did have security walking around with him right now.
You see him everywhere, dude. You see him. Yeah. You see him at different tailgates. I mean, hell, he was at the Eagles tailgate where the cameraman's foot went through the RV and almost fell off the top. But yeah, that's what he does. Maybe he just needs a person, right? Maybe he doesn't need a montage. Maybe he doesn't need to be surrounded by 4 or 5 men while he's walking down the street.
He just needs Big Dom to be hanging out with him, right?
Maybe he needs one person on his back shoulder.
What would Big Dom have done in that situation?
Yeah.
That kid would be sleeping with the fishes really quickly. Plain and simple. Jesus. But I think, I don't like to get sentimental. I don't like to get serious on the show. It is election day. And I think Jason Kelce's words last night kind of sum up the anger, the fear, the frustration, what's going to go on social media today, let alone in person and all these things. Don't greet hate with hate. I think it's a fantastic word, fantastic line, and something that's a big issue in this country.
Sure is, brother. Twitter is going to be one hell of a place to be today.
Luckily for me, Election Day is one of the busier days. Presidential election rivals the Super Bowl in busy days in the pizza business. So I'm not going to have time for social media day, thank God.
Interesting. Only once every 4 years, though, Philip.
Yeah, only once every 4 years. I mean, it's always busy, but it's a little something extra special on Election Day in the pizza business. So
you put anything on the pies, or you draw a nice little American flag?
Normally, someone in the chat, normally it's Duck or Eric, notices my white tagline under my name. Nobody's commented on my tagline.
No, there you go.
I didn't get one Brewster's Million comment from anybody in the chat today, and I'm a little disappointed in that. It was such a layup for everybody. No, what I do, I just promote pictures of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles having pizza parties. Vote for the pizza party over the Republican or the Democratic Party. That's me. I just capitalize on these situations financially as best as I can.
That's what this country's all about, brother.
That's right. Capitalizing. Dylan, capitalize on your moment. Where can everybody find you and all the work and what you guys got coming up over at DSM this week?
Yeah, man. So you can see my tag is just my ad on Twitter at DylanJD98. But if you want to find all of our work, all of our podcasts, where we post our bets to for myself and Scotty on Twitter, it's at DSM_media. Very simple. DSM's all caps. And then the link tree in our bio will take you everywhere. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and that is the most important site to get to. Help us get our subscriber count up to our first 200 on the newer channel. I see a couple familiar names in here. Trinidad being the biggest one. But we appreciate you guys that already have, and anybody new. Subscribe, like, share it out, whatever you got to do. Help yourself, help us, because it is the best spot to get your comments and be interactive like you're doing right here on Trending in the AM. Same with us.
Yep. Awesome. Guys, with that being said, we're going to wrap it up. Tomorrow we'll be back. I don't know what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. The world might be on fire tomorrow. It might not be. I don't know, but we'll find something. I got some more content to get through this week. But guys, Dylan, thank you very much, guys. I linked his YouTube page down in the bottom there. So if you guys want to find him, that's how you can find him down there as well. But we're going to wrap it up very simply. As we always say, it's go Birds, and it's bubbles up to you guys.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep.